Hello, hello, hello. Game week 17, Hooligan Soccer Podcast. Joined as ever by the enigmatic The Qooligan with myself, Gary Striker. Qooligan, how are you? What's been going on in your
I'm
world?
feeling confident, Gary. I'm feeling so confident, probably absurdly confident that the Eagles are going to defeat the Gunners in the Carabao Cup,
In
which
the
will be
Caribbean
launching in approximately 1 hour
in 1 hour time. So we'll have
on some streaming service near you. But we'll see how I feel 2.5 hours from now.
we'll try and get this wrapped up within an hour, so you don't have to be split screen and have your attention split everywhere as well.
Bingo.
That's quite a run now that Crystal Palace have got going, right? We've had a draw with Man City, and then obviously the past results as well, where they won last weekend as well against Brighton. They won 3-1 as well. That's 4 points in 2 games and a quarterfinal in a Carabao Cup. Things could be looking up. And
Final, but sure, anything with the word "final" in it, we like.
This could be an early Christmas present for you? Hey,
It could be, and it could be, and while I do think, I've always thought that the Palace's sort of stumble and form in the first half were not reflective, I think, of the team that they are, and I actually think that about most of the clubs except for Southampton. Poor Southampton, they deserve to be at the bottom. They're just not great so far. But like Wolves, I think are better than their record indicate in many cases. I think Ipswich have proven that they've got some steeliness to them, and they just were having, Premier League debut, bumbling and various other things. Their defense is a little shoddy, but Palace are there. We're in a better place than we were, 6 weeks ago. Certainly, 3 wins will do that to you, and a good run of form. So yeah, not disappointed. Not disappointed under any in any way whatsoever.
just looking at the form guide for the last 5 Premier League games for Palace, there is 3 draws and 2 wins in the last 5 games. The only there is Palace, and then there is Arsenal, Chelsea, and Liverpool are the only 4 teams to have not lost a game in the last 5 games. How's that?
I'm very happy to state that is the type of company that we should be keeping.
That is up there. Well, the good news is it looks as though you're 4 points off the top as well. I think there's a bit of there's breathing room there as well, so you can relax a little bit. It's not such a dog fight. And as I say, with the quarterfinal to go against Arsenal, and rumor has it that Arsenal are going to be fielding a weaker team as well because they want to save themselves for the league. So
I think I that's what I've heard, and whether there's legitimate, whether they are legitimately injured or whether this is just some gamesmanship on Arteta's, it's some sort of plan that he's got. We all know that Arsenal is capable of summoning the dark arts, right? They have been accused on numerous occasions of employing the seedy underside of the beautiful game to their advantage whenever possible. So whether that be setting picks on set plays, which we all know is not allowed, but yet they seem to manage to do it. They're always very much skirting the edge on that. But Eagles don't sit in the mud, so we'll see what happens.
Eagles soar and Eagles rise. So
that's correct.
I'll be watching it obviously with a sort of with excitement, and hopefully Palace do put one over on Arsenal in the quarterfinals. But as much as we can talk about Crystal Palace and their form as well, this is not just solely a Crystal Palace podcast. This is obviously a world soccer podcast. So we've got a few things to cover off. I think the Premier League, as always, is the best place to start because there was just so many interesting narratives last week. Crazy results. We'll come through some upcoming fixtures. Then we're going to go into some world news as well. There's been some developments, obviously, on your favorite footballing organization, FIFA, and a few points that we need to sort of cover off, and then obviously we'll bounce around, and there's a few other narratives as well floating around. So let's start with game week 16, last week's podcast. I think obviously there's one place to start, which is the Manchester derby, as we discussed, and we said that is the match to watch. I was halfway through it, and then I had to go and take care of some parenting responsibilities. So I only got to watch the second half or listen to the second half on the radio afterwards. But I by the sounds of it, this was a really dull game with a really sort of exciting ending, and both teams did not deserve to win, and both teams probably deserved a draw. But what is your take? What are your thoughts here on the United, or the Manchester derby, should I say? Because this was wild.
It was horrible. I mean, it looked like you had two teams that didn't want to be there. It was a dull affair. It really was. And again, and in the same way, I didn't see the whole of it. I had some things that I had to go and do as well. But I did watch the first, I think, 25 minutes of it before I had to go and perform my home duties, as they say. And it just didn't strike me as, I mean, it was a tepid,
Dull,
not
exciting,
dull, tepid. Yeah. Insipid is another word that has a much more negative connotation than maybe deserved. Now, that's not to say that the last 10 minutes weren't great. And I'll just like to say, kind of nice to see Man U back in that form. That's always what Man U were famous for, right? They have over the decades been known for that last 10-minute Man U surprise. You better believe it. As soon as that watch ticks in, yeah. And they haven't done that in the last 3 years. In fact, they've been the opposite. They've been, okay, you're two up against Man U. You got nothing to worry about. You're up against you're fine. No, this was, I think it's a brief blip. I don't think it'll be like this for the rest of the time, but at least it was a nice return to form for a brief period that made you go, I remember the good old days.
Good old days, hey? These good old days. Yeah. I agree. I mean, City, I don't think, as you said, neither teams deserve to win. What was also interesting about that was Garnacho and Rashford were dropped by Ruben Amorim, who's obviously looking to make his mark. And it was a gamble, and obviously it paid off for him because he got the points, and all of a sudden you can't have Rashford and Garnacho coming into the training ground the next week and being like, see, if you played us, we would have had a different result. So it's
of course, there was subsequent news afterwards that was big.
Of course.
Right? I mean, basically, Rashford's out. I mean, for all intents and purposes, there is no more future for him at that club.
You think that's it? Do you think he'll go?
Absolutely. I think, listen, either this is some masterful psychological, they're trying to do some masterful psychological, gamesmanship on him. But I genuinely believe that Sir Jim has looked at Rashford and has looked at the data, and he's put it all there on the scales, and he doesn't like it.
He doesn't like
it. Wants him out.
Well, that's probably the case. And look, I think there's a wholesale shakeup probably coming of that club as well now that there's new ownership, right. And they've been moving a lot of pieces around the board as well. And as we understand, they're very data driven and very analytical. So I think you can definitely see. I think there's a correlation with Marcus Rashford when he got his new contract, which he's on sort of like $300,000 a week, something insane like that.
365,000 quid a week.
That's pounds. So obviously round that up at 1.2, that's touching on nearly $400,000. Okay. Before the sponsorships and the endorsements as well. So, but you get that. And then all of a sudden the form and the drop off and just the effort and the energy and the application has not been there. So my suspicion will be that I know PSG have been long admirers of Marcus Rashford, and my suspicion will probably be that he ends up at PSG.
And more to the point, they have the pockets to be able to pay the salary. And I don't even think Man U's trying to get a lot of transfer fee out of him.
I think, yeah.
I really think they want that salary off the books.
That would definitely be a big move. The other big salary on the books they have is Casemiro as well. They've got a 32-year-old who's also on sort of like $300,000.
That's right.
So that's nearly $700,000 a week you can save.
That's right.
Two players out.
But the other really important factor with Rashford is that he's homegrown.
Mm-hmm. So
when you put him out, that takes a gigantic chunk out of your FFP.
Pure
profit. Like, whoa.
Pure profit. Yes.
Yeah, pure profit. And so that has got to have been a calculation within that executive team up there. And the Glazers didn't have diddly squat to do with it because the Glazers are only interested in one thing: that's siphoning cash out of that cow. That's all they want. They just want their dividends. Every quarter, they just want their dividends. They don't give a crap. Sir Jim's different. He's actually trying to do something to initiate change, to make this into a club that carries itself proud and keeps its chin up this time, right? So yeah, it's I mean, and it's going to get even rockier.
Yeah,
people. He raised ticket prices. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's making a lot of enemies, but then he's also got like a couple $1 billion of FU money.
Yeah. So, and he didn't get there by making friends, right? He's gonna shake it up, and he's gonna.
I don't think he's made it. I don't think the guy is a friend in the world. The only pictures I see him with are with Chinese petroleum executives, which got to be really careful around them.
You got to be careful on that one. So, okay, so we had United. That's sort of the United side. I mean, we keep talking about this, and it's almost sort of getting sort of, now monotonous now, just talking about Man City and Pep Guardiola and just the sort of the chasm that they've fallen into.
Yeah.
I mean, when does this get arrested? I know I asked this last time, but I was expecting you'd at least maybe get a draw and then sort of be able to sort of muddle their way through Christmas and then sort of, start building a bit of momentum afterwards. But they look just psychologically, they're just bereft of just any confidence, any belief.
Yeah. There's a phenomenon in free diving, right? Let's just go completely tangential here. So free diving, which is an obscure sport. There's a phenomenon in free diving, which they call the blue hole syndrome, right? Where you when you're down at a certain point, psychologically, you just keep fixating on the deep and you just keep going. And you're not even consciously aware of it. It just sort of happens in both the physiological and psychological effects that free diving has upon you. And in a way, City are in that state.
Mm-hmm.
They're just sinking.
They're just blue holing, all right?
And sinking requires something to get out of it, and that something hasn't happened yet. I do believe it will happen. I don't think that club is they're too good. They're too qualified. But something is going to have to happen. Someone's going to either, and they'll snap out of it. I have faith that they'll snap out of it. But for now, it's morbidly awesome to watch it happen. You don't see this. This doesn't happen. This does not happen with many professional sports organizations outside of certain American clubs, NFL clubs that do it intentionally to tank themselves so they can get better draft picks, but that doesn't work in the Premier League. So there is in this type of sporting scenario where there is no reward for failure. To see a collapse of a team that was on the top for so long and it's not even being done through other mechanisms. Like you can argue that Barcelona has kind of done this to themselves. They've shot themselves in the foot by taking certain actions. Ajax did the exact same thing, right? When Mark Overmars decided to be an absolute level one asshole and do inappropriate things, the whole club has taken a hit, and it's taken years for them to recover. But these were things that were spurred by outside influences or by choices that were made within the executive team at the top. But Cities, there's no one, again, and I've said it, and you're going to hate me for saying it, the only catalyst that you can look at is Rodri's injury.
It seems to be
the only real catalyst that you can see.
Definitely, again, similar to Marcus Rashford's contract negotiations and then sort of moving down, you can see things did go south from that very moment, as you say. And I don't think that's the reason. We just published an article, obviously, and we put it through as well. And just the number of, if you look at the number of first team players that they've sold and the number of first team players that they've signed, and then the number of injuries that they have, it essentially gives them a -8 number of first team players where they are currently at the moment. So that's essentially a third of a squad. So they're trying to have to sort of pad that with kids and sort of youth team players, which obviously come in. And you're seeing sort of, Rico Lewis and Oscar Bob, who are very talented and very good, but just not at the level and the mindset and the mentality of some of these other sort of established first team players who have won the Champions League. And so it's like, my sense is they're going to have to go shopping in January. They're going to have to sort of buy some stopgap replacement players that are probably long-term prospects, but look, come in here for 6, 12, 18 months and do a job and sort of help us sort of arrest this decline. As you've mentioned as well, and as we put together in this article, is they can't go shopping and spend big, because there's charges going on there is going to be further scrutiny on their account, their FFP, and all of the sort of activities that they've been accused of doing. So I don't see Pep Guardiola getting sacked. I don't think they sack him. I think they stick with him and they ride this out, just as Liverpool did with Jurgen Klopp when they had that dip and they went down after the league. But
he's earned himself time. Mm-hmm. If there's ever been a manager who has put themselves in a secure position, mm-hmm. it's him.
Of course,
he might want to think about some of his sideline antics and various other things, but generally speaking, I mean, he's got a hall pass, so I wouldn't worry too much.
Yeah, I think he's going to be fine, and so he's just going to have to sit down and sort of figure out how do we rebuild it. And really, what it sounds like that needs to happen is there's a squad rebuild that needs to happen there. They need to move on some players and bring in some new ones and adjust and adapt, and it's going to be interesting. The scary thing as well is if you look at Haaland, he's gone completely missing. I don't know if it's confidence, if he's just not getting the service, if it's a bit of both. It's
I'm telling you, he's a baby daddy now. Got a kid coming in 2.5 months.
We all know
who's ever had a child knows. Once that happens, things start. I mean, all the stuff up here starts. You know, I mean, I'm putting that one out there. I don't think anybody else is mentioning it. But no, I still think that's a fact.
Well, it's definitely true. Kevin De Bruyne doesn't look. I think we can all agree that Kevin De Bruyne is on sort of the sunset sort of twilight years of his career, and you could see they're trying to milk every last bit of football, every bit of soccer.
I'm still holding out hope that De Bruyne decides that he wants to put some ownership stake into San Diego FC and goes out and joins Chucky. Goes out and joins Chucky down in SoCal, right? Why not?
To San Diego, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to sort of turn away from those petrodollars. But yes, there's De Bruyne. Foden, all of a sudden, Foden doesn't look like doesn't look like the superstar that he was. So we'll see what happens there. And then if you sort of go and look through the other teams,
had a kid in July, Foden.
Yeah, another one. I think he's got 4 now. I think this is his 4th child.
No, it was his 3rd.
3. I mean, that's.
Sure, he's only 24 or something like that. But,
that's a lot of children at 24 years of age. Hey, this is like the 1950s all over again. And so we're going to have to see what happens. And then I know even like Edison, the goalkeeper, is coming under scrutiny, and has he gone as well? So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how Pep sort of adapts and reacts to this. But I agree with you as a not a Manchester City or a Man United fan. It's very entertaining. It's really good to watch, and it's really great to see. And they have Aston Villa this weekend. And Aston Villa are finally sort of, turned around a little bit and sort of started getting a little bit of momentum together. I know that they didn't.
Are they really? No, well, I disagree.
Champions League, they're still in the top section as well.
Champions League, they're ripping it up. That's fine. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with there's nothing wrong with a nice Champions League run. Everybody loves that. Yeah. But Aston Villa are perhaps the most topsy-turvy, up and down, Jekyll and Hyde team that we've got in the Premier League right now, where they can go onto these Champions League thing and they can do these scintillating forms, these incredible finishes, and it's all this great stuff, and it's the big lights and the big time, and then they can come back and they can just absolutely drop a turd against Forest. And that's not to take away from Nottingham Forest, who are the best team in the Premier League in terms of where their expectations were start of season and where they are now. Yes. Clear winners.
Forest, 4th place, Man City right now. I agree with you. But just going back to your Aston Villa topsy-turvy side, I thought you were talking about Tottenham Hotspur for a moment there as well. Because
please, does that even need to be said? It's Tottenham.
What the hell is going? It is crazy. If you look at their form, they've won, they've drawn, they've lost, they've won, and they beat City 4-0. They lose 4-3 to Chelsea. They win 5-0 against Southampton. Now, admittedly, Southampton were just
they lost to Brentford 4-2. Right? Didn't they lose to Brentford 4-2? They lost to somebody 4-2. So it's like
they've not they've been.
No, man. Well. Nobody who follows the sport is surprised by Spurs doing this. This has been the Spurs MO for the last few years, which is tremendous talent, incredible potential, face palming flops. I mean, there's a reason why they call it Spursiness. No, really. I mean, it is a true. Oh, they lost to Bournemouth 1-0. Yeah, that was the last one. I mean, it is a thing. It is a real thing.
It is a thing. And speaking of which, and Spurs, they have Liverpool on Sunday. That's the sort of the late game.
Yeah, that's a fascinating game. That's a fascinating game because
could be high scoring.
It could be high scoring, or it could be that Liverpool circles the wagons and then suddenly goes right. I mean, listen, let's just go right now. Liverpool's 2-2 draw was a major victory for them. That they were up again. They didn't look great when they started, and
Robertson got sent off in the
and rightly so. Gotta say, Robertson apparently got hit in the knee in the first minute and wasn't feeling 100%. I'm not trying to defend him. I'm just saying that from everything that I read, he was not fully on and not fully himself. Right? He had the one shot that deflected off of his leg and into the net. That's just bad luck. You can't blame him for that. But then that touch was abysmal. The tackle was ill-advised. He rightly got red. He was lucky that the ball didn't go in the net, so they got the triple penalty, right? That they got the triple blow of conceding a goal, losing a player, right? And all. I mean, so, and then for them to claw back the way they did, that
it was impressive.
That shows the champion. That's the championship drive. Right? That's the championship drive.
Those are the signs of champions when it's all going against you. You still grind out a result. And this is week 3 where we said Liverpool grinding in the Crucible area as well. In Crucible era,
this is the classic grind.
This is the sign of champion.
Right.
Now,
and what's also good is they got Diogo Jota back, and that's big for them because that guy is a catalyst player. He gets on there, he gets in people's heads. He needles people, and he scores.
And he scores goals.
That guy is a classic poacher, like creator. He'll do it from all the sides.
Yes.
Right?
He scores goals as well. So now having him back,
that's his gig.
Liverpool seem to have this ability to always go and find and buy good strikers. They've always seems to have had good strikers. If you look at, obviously, originally Salah and then Mane and then Firmino when they had that, and then they've gone and got Nunez, who I still think is still not quite the finished article and probably still is not the superstar that he could be. And then even with Jota and then Gakpo, they just seem to have these rotating forwards that are sort of churning them out, and it's impressive. But I think the other interesting element there as well is Liverpool. They're playing Spurs, as we mentioned as well. So they need a win. Hey, they need a win because if you look at their form, they've drawn their last 2 games. Now, obviously, they're not going to just constantly go and win every game. They've still only lost 1 game, which is very, very impressive. So as long as they don't lose, they're just going to be just fine and keep grinding it out. Mm-hmm. However, hot on their heels are Chelsea. Again, look very, very comfortable in putting away Brentford. I know, obviously, the score was a bit tighter than it suggests, but there was a lot of opportunities. I know this is the sort of the narrative floating around is Chelsea title contenders. Maresca's saying we're not title contenders.
You got to stop. You got to stop saying that because he's just got to stop. It's annoying.
Everyone off. It is because we can all see what it is because as we discussed last week, it's a 2-horse race now. There is a 2-horse. There is a gap between Arsenal and Chelsea between 3rd and 2nd, and they break away. But Chelsea are just winning. They just keep winning. They just keep grinding out results. And it's suddenly all of a sudden looks very, very exciting with the things.
Doesn't it remind you of a particular character from a children's movie that was also blue? Just keep winning. Just keep winning. We're talking about Dory from. We're talking about Dory from.
You just think they just keep gliding along and just winning.
Just keep winning. Just keep winning.
Looks like they're getting a momentum going. It doesn't. Whereas it looks like Liverpool are wobbling. City have sort of turned off. Arsenal are wobbling as well. They just seem to be sort of more going on that trend and that trajectory. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, the wind is at their back.
Yeah,
and barring. And I don't know what the hell happened with Mudryk or what the hell substance he took or what all that. But that's to say this: he was never a factor in Chelsea's plans. So losing him won't do a goddamn thing.
That won't matter. That'll actually help things on the squad and the sort of
if they can actually shed that, they'll go in and find someone else who's going to be significantly more impactful.
Well, they still have a lot of players in that position as well, even like João Felix and then Madueke and
absolutely.
So I don't think that's going to impact them in any way. And they're playing Everton this weekend as well. So Everton with their record at home. I mean, Everton have been a little bit shaky, sort of obviously sort of idling down in 16th. So we'll see what happens. I think they should be safe, but But yeah, so if that keeps on coming, and again, as you say, this is the crucible, as you've been talking about the Qooligan, this is the crucible, and this is how it is. And whoever comes out on the other side of December will be very, very telling on sort of the sort of future.
I'd be curious to see if Everton's going to try and play the same type of game plan that they did against Arsenal, right? Which is essentially park the bus. I don't think they had a shot on frame.
Yeah,
the entire game. They were like, we're just going to sit back and we're just going to frustrate the hell out of Arsenal and see what happens. I mean, unbelievable.
What's interesting is we know that for some reason Arsenal, we've discussed this, they've scored a lot of goals, but they come from all around the different players in the park. I know Saka is one of those big players that's scoring them, but if you take them out of the game and sort of some of the other, they just seem to be lacking a real striker. Gabriel Jesus is not the finished, not the real deal. Martinelli has fallen off quite a bit as well. So yeah,
Kai Havertz is mercurial, right? It's like
Kai Havertz, he is not a striker. He is a number 10. He plays behind the striker, and they have him as a striker. And so I know he scored some big goals and some good goals, but he is not a pure striker for me, and they sort of certainly are lacking that.
I often think in an alternate universe, what would have happened if Haaland had gone to Arsenal? And it boggles the mind with the set piece news that these guys have, right? With their ability to like put the ball in perfect spots, him right there in the middle. I mean, I think you're talking mad goals, and Arsenal is 100% of the race.
It's definitely sort of the missing piece that they certainly need. And again, it will be interesting to see what happens in January with the transfer window coming up. There's your favorite striker, yes, at Sporting Lisbon.
I'm just saying.
There's rumors that Arsenal are sort of making sort of eyes at him. There's also rumors that Chelsea are meant to be looking at him as well. I understand United are also looking at him, and there's a connection there with United and Ruben Amorim. But one thing's for sure, he's going to be able to pick and choose where he wants to go, and he's going to get a good deal out of it. That's for sure.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Okay, so that kind of covers the Premier League. Any other areas?
Well, yeah, I think we have to mention the fact that we did lose 2 managers over the weekend, which is an unusual event. Manager dismissal,
yes,
is big, is grounds for like, wow, okay, but two in one weekend, and the Crucible's we're only in the halfway through.
So
you'd see more.
Owners and leadership teams of football, soccer clubs are panicking a little bit as well. So obviously Southampton, I mean, they've just become a laughingstock. They're down. I think they're just gone. They are gone. Lost 30.
I mean, they could. There is a chance that they could out Derby.
This is possible.
All right. I mean,
job though, that is if you take that job, it's like, look, we can probably accept that we're going down, so it's a turnaround gig. I'll go back into the Championship and try and bring them up. That will be the pitch, surely. Yeah,
I mean, I was thinking, who's the guy that you go to when you're in this situation? You go to Big Sam Allardyce, right? Come on in, Big Sam, see what you can do. But I don't even think he'll touch this one.
I don't.
No, he'll be like, no. You back it away slowly.
yeah, and also Frank Lampard is off the market and gone to Coventry as well, because that was also
right. No, I actually, if I was Southampton, I would be doing similar. I would be looking for a young manager who wants to make his bones, right? Who's willing to come in, shake up a few things, and you really want to avoid setting a record for badness. And if you can do that, and you go in with that understanding that at least maybe let's try to make it so that if we get relegated, at least we're being relegated while we're kind of on the uptick, and so not everybody's feeling bad. Yeah, it's all right. I mean, how bad of a look is it when the manager walks into the tunnel before the end of the half and your team concedes a goal?
I think
Holy crap, Gary. I have never, ever seen that.
He knew it's over. So that's it. So
he must have been on his cell phone going like, give me some takeout and and a crate of beer, deliver it to my house. I'm going to be there in 15 minutes.
And texting his wife, and let's book a vacation as well, because we're probably going to have the Christmas off, so we can go.
No kidding. Right.
And then the other managerial sacking was the West Ham manager. Is that correct?
No, it was Wolves.
The Wolves manager.
Gary O'Neill.
Yes, that's it. Gary O'Neill.
Gary O'Neill was let go, which I don't know. I've mixed opinions. Listen, Wolves have not been good. I think the talent they have is there.
Mm-hmm.
But there was something else. There was something in the core. There was a undercurrent of rot or something. Look at the discipline. Look at the disciplinary fallout from that game that they had. Right? They lost Ait Nouri. He got a second yellow in the post-match fracas that occurred. Right? So he got one, and then Cunha as well. He snatched the glasses off of an official. And he's got a ban now too. I mean, you can't have that. Passion is good. By the way, Cucurella also got that. Cucurella lost his freaking mind at the end of that game. We don't know why.
Yeah,
but
need to do that.
He got himself a red.
Yeah. So, but his second yellow, I believe it was, for sort of a post match when he sort of snapped a little bit. He need to do that, and that's sort of discipline that probably
works. Well, that's stuff that you've got to, and Cucurella's always had that type of explosive character, and but for Wolves, I mean, that's just they've lost two of their starters, including their main goal scorer, for their next fixture. I mean,
it's over. Well, the good news, if you're a Palace fan or some team at the bottom half as well, that means those two spots of relegation spots have been filled. Obviously, Southampton and Wolves are probably down. Ipswich circling the drain a little bit, and so if Leicester now with I know Leicester have still with Ruud van Nistelrooy at the helm and trying to sort of turn them around. If you can just
there's no, I mean, whatever nice good feelings Ruud had going in, it was dashed when Newcastle just thrashed them,
destroyed them, absolutely
destroyed them.
Yeah.
I mean, even though the scoreline was less than Southampton, I mean, listen, Tottenham at least had the decency to do it all in one half and then go and have some tea. Okay. But Newcastle spread it out over the whole game. It was like a slow thrashing. It was like, I'm going to beat you up. Oh, hold on. I'm going to have a little bit of a pause, and then I'm going to come back and do it a little bit more. Oh, yeah. It's awful.
And so do you think Tottenham and Ange Ball and the team took a little bit of mercy on Southampton because they went 5-0 up at half time? They sit in the dressing room and they're like, all right, guys, let's just take it easy. But
yeah, I think, I don't think it was tacit. I don't think that was something that I don't think Ange would ever, and nobody else would ever admit it. But I do think that certainly they backed it off. And whether that was a conscious choice, which I don't think it was, I just think they just kind of said, you know what, let's just play.
We've won.
And we're, let's just play, not get hurt, and do our things, right? That's all you need to do.
Not go for the 10, right? There's no team has ever won by 10 goals in the Premier League.
No. They could have, and they probably could have done it, but they didn't.
Yep, they could have.
Right.
Oh, well, okay. So that's the Premier League covered mostly this weekend. I'm just looking at some of the other fixtures and seeing if there's anything we haven't covered or jumped out. But yeah, that City Villa game is going to be exciting. Incidentally, did you see that there was the FIFA award? There was a FIFA award ceremony this past week.
Another one?
Another one, yes, another one. There's a lot of events and activity.
Oh, is this for oh yeah, that's right. The voting closed out on the Players of the Year.
That's it, the Player of the Year. That's right.
Right. So they had the Player of the Year, the Puskas Award, the Marta Award, all the various other.
Do you know who won the Marta Award?
Marta,
yeah, she won her own.
I mean, if you're going to name an award after somebody and nominate them, if they don't win, then you've got a problem.
When you have legendary status as she has with so
many. No. And rightly so. She won a trophy with her team.
Yeah.
Won a trophy for her team, and this is her last year. So yeah, you give that to her going out.
As she goes.
Most of the other players sitting in that nomination pool are all very young and will have their chance to win it, in their time.
Yes.
You acknowledge the legend. Thank you very much. And next year you move on to the next thing. Yeah.
The one other thing,
by the way, that is normally something that I would be very cynical about, but in this particular case, I'm putting the cynicism aside. Well done, Marta.
Well done, Marta. Indeed, no, it's an incredible achievement with a phenomenal. Absolutely, well, for sure. The other interesting thing as well is goalkeeper of the year was Emi Martinez, the Aston Villa goalkeeper. The only goalkeeper to have won that award twice. The only goalkeeper in history. So it's, as I say, he's one of my favorite goalkeepers. I think he is fantastic. I would love it if Chelsea went in and snapped him up, but I know you're not a big fan of him. But
no, I'm a big fan of his goalkeeping. I'm a not big fan of him.
Of his personality and his antics.
I don't like him as a person, but as a goalkeeper, he's the person I want in the net.
He is, yeah.
100%.
He is good. He is
love to play with him, hate to play against him.
Yeah. So it's another, like Marco Correa as well, right? He's one of those players.
Same guy, same thing.
Yeah, on your team, you love him and you want him. If you're playing against him, you just
100%.
absolutely hate him. He's
absolute tool shed off the field.
Absolutely shithouser.
Yeah.
So just looking at the other fixtures, also are the sort of other favorite team as well coming up is Forest against Brentford. That's going to be a fun game, and I really do want to see Forest keep growing on and keep doing well.
Brentford at home.
Or Brentford at home, Forest away.
Yeah, well, there you go, right? So, I mean, seriously, Brentford,
home for,
again, we were talking about Jekyll and Hyde scenarios, right?
Mm-hmm.
Brentford are the Jekyll and Hyde of home and away fixtures.
Mm-hmm.
They have not lost at home, and they have earned all point. They've got one draw and all wins at home, and they've had one draw and all losses on the road.
Away. So there we go.
I mean, it is like you don't get any more opposite than Brentford in that particular regard. So, yeah. I got to say, Forest, you may not do it, but if they can beat Brentford at home,
that's a big get. I just realized, Qooligan, your beloved Crystal Palace are not only playing Arsenal today in the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup, but then playing them again on Saturday. Wow.
I know. Which begs the question, right? Everybody who's ever played the game knows when you have to play the same team in back-to-back fixtures, it is virtually impossible to win both those fixtures, right? Unless there's a massive disparity in the team quality.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those scenarios where you're like, God, do we go for the Carabao and drop? Which one do we want to win? As a Palace fan, which one do I want the team to win?
If you had to pick one, what would you pick?
I hate to say it, but I pick League.
Interesting. I think the way I look at it is, well, I think you guys are pretty much safe. I don't think there's a chance of relegation.
No, I'm not quite as confident. And a win against Arsenal in League would go a long way towards, to boosting ourselves up into that safer tier. And I'm also I get the trophies are great and all that, but I'm not a big trophy guy. I would I go in for the safety and the security of being able to say that I am a fan of a Premier League squad next year means more to me personally. And I recognize that I might be in the minority of Palace fans, but I like that better than going and maybe playing in, getting a Carabao Cup, but then all of a sudden having a tumble and going down in the Championship, which is it's much harder to get out of the Championship than it is to win a Carabao Cup, in my opinion.
This is true. I think we need to change your byline on Hooligan Soccer instead of the Qooligan. Not a big trophy guy.
Not a big trophy guy.
Well, I think
I've never won a trophy in anything, so therefore, right? Why not?
That's true. That's true. So we've got Palace against Arsenal, and good luck to them, and hopefully that London derby. And then just looking through, we've got Fulham, Southampton. You'd expect Fulham to do the business there at home against Southampton.
Yeah, absolutely.
Less Southampton caretaker manager, whoever they've chosen, comes in and has a bit of a bounce.
And then Wolves, man, battle of the bottom feeders again.
That's it. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. And incidentally, as well, what's interesting is just realizing this: Aston Villa, Man City. That's 4th versus 5th, right? Who would have thought that if we'd be saying that as well?
That's yeah.
And then the big one.
Great fixtures coming up. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be an exciting, and I'm going to call it here. I think Bournemouth shock Man U.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't think that's such a big shock the way Bournemouth have been playing, the position that Bournemouth have
been playing.
That's such a big shock. Bournemouth are in 6th place. They're 2 points behind Man City, and if they beat Man United and Forest do the business over City, then all of a sudden Bournemouth are in 5th place, City are in 6th, and
Go figure.
Those 3 teams of Villa, Bournemouth, and Forest have been really, really surprising and sort of definitely over-delivered. That's for sure. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so exciting weekend coming up, and then obviously we've got a few days. We've got this little sort of religious holiday called Christmas in between, and then obviously the Boxing Day fixtures on Thursday as well. So that will keep it exciting and
good times.
And lots to follow, which will be good. All of those games, incidentally, happening on the same day on Thursday. Sorry, that's a lie. There's one game, Brighton, and 2 games on for the Friday, the 27th of December, that are not happening. But just looking through those, we'll obviously try and squeeze in another podcast, I think, pre-Christmas, but we'll discuss that and figure that out. But the other interesting things are just in terms of going on around the world as we come to the end of the year, end of the calendar year, is FIFA. Now, tomorrow they will be releasing the sale for the tickets for the World Club Cup. I know, obviously, you have some very strong opinions on FIFA, this tournament in general. The tickets rumored. I've just had a look around. Apparently, there's a full. They're doing what FIFA have announced that they're going to do. What's called a sliding scale on the ticket prices. Now, this is something I've been tracking, which is, I think, the price of soccer in the US for MLS games is way too high. To go and see an MLS team, you're looking at paying $150, $200 in some cases, whereas Premier League games are £80, so they come at about $100. World Cup games, generally World Cup games in Qatar, when I was there 2 and a bit years ago, or actually 2 years ago exactly, it was they were about sort of $80 for sort of category B, $120 for category A, so well priced relatively. We're going to see the same thing here. I think we're going to try and we're probably going to have our eyes gouged out because FIFA have not made enough money from this tournament in spite of the $1 billion DAZN transfer broadcasting deal, plus all the new sponsors that they're bringing. But the other interesting news that I wanted to bring up to you and sort of let you know is currently at the moment, there is also another game going on right now, which is Real Madrid against, I've lost the tab now. Pachuca, exactly.
In Mexico, yes.
Yes, they're playing against Pachuca in Mexico, and actually, just looking at it, they seem to have just won. So they've just won, and now they are. But that tournament used to be called the World Club Cup, which has now been rebranded and obviously happening this summer.
The Intercontinental Cup, if I'm not mistaken.
FIFA have quietly rebranded that tournament as now, yes, as you say, the Intercontinental Cup. So congratulations to Real Madrid, because they have literally just become Intercontinental champions. It looks like they sort of won 3-0 over Pachuca as well. So Kylian Mbappe sort of rides in, scored. Rodrigo, Vinicius Jr. as well. So the three boys back in business. But it's just astounding the level of sort of gall and mastery that they have to just sort of move these pieces around the board, to be renaming categories and competitions and sort of spinning them up in a way. So it will be, there's suddenly the Intercontinental Cup now is a new thing all of a sudden.
It isn't. My understanding is that the Club World Cup / Intercontinental Cup / they've been doing this forever, right? These types of tournaments and are constantly respun, right? It used to be called the Toyota, because Toyota was a major sponsor. It was called the Toyota Intercontinental Cup for a long time. There's so much history in all of this, which is why I generally called it the who cares. Because it was like I get that everybody wants to watch the game. There is a point though where diminishing returns, right, you're not going to get that much out of it. Read to the fact that it's not being broadcast anywhere, right? As far as I know, I mean, it's so they're getting something out of it, but I'm not exactly sure what that is, right? It's just
they'll get a little badge, well, the team will get a little emblem on their kit that they can wear with pride and show that they are Intercontinental champions. But yeah, that was generally it. I mean, again, it was always played in sort of some obscure location at some weird time zone against teams that you'd never really heard of as well. So as you say, I think you're aptly the Who Cares Cup, right? It's not as appealing. And then the other interesting sort of thing that I've got an eye on, and obviously we published an article as well about Pep and some of the dealings that he can do in the transfer window, is we have the opening of the transfer window in January. So it will be interesting to see. I absolutely love transfer windows as well, because the deals, the craziness that happens, the wild deals that happen. Do you have any sort of thoughts or predictions or sort of, ideas of sort of, any transfers that you sort of think could happen? Any players that you think will be on the move and go somewhere? Because I think there's going to be a lot of movements. I have a feeling this transfer.
I don't. I will have more for the next pod. I've been not really paying too much attention to the transfer window as yet. I'm going to wait a little bit. Thoughts? I don't know. There's so much. There's need everywhere, and so the big question is, I think the biggest thing that looms over this particular transfer window is FFP. It's the financial fair play. how are clubs going to be able to maneuver within these caps and these windows and see what's going down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gonna be curious, right? Obviously, the big clubs that are already under that microscope are going to have to be very mindful. Like you look at a club like Newcastle, which has been somewhat decent with their in their expenditures.
For sure.
They've stumbled, but what are you going to do? The Newcastle roster is particularly solid. I don't think it needs anybody additional.
Yeah.
I think, you mentioned City. City needs to address some injury concerns and some gaps, but they're already carrying a huge roster. I mean, how much more can these teams take, right? And so with the transfer window coming in, I've been looking at some of the other leagues to see where is that talent going to be poached from? Like who's out there looking at some of these, smaller teams and looking for the particular talent. That's what I'm going to be really focusing on.
Where the deals are. Yeah. Yeah. No,
also the MLS transfer window is also starting. I mean, and that is while we talk about the transfer window, we're usually talking about Europe, and that's fine. That's where the real good stuff is happening. Let's be honest. But the MLS transfer window is opening too, and there's a lot that's going to be moving in the MLS world. That's something I'm going to be putting some time in and looking, because San Diego FC, they're starting. They have to build a club from scratch. They were non-existent, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
They were non-existent a year ago.
Yeah.
They were an idea. They were a press release, and now they're a team. They have 12 players on their roster, 12 signed players on their roster right now. And one of them is a world-class striker, Chucky, right? Herving Chucky Lazaro, signed from PSV. He's currently playing with PSV. He will transfer over on the 1st of January. He's a designated player for them. It's big news.
Yeah.
And they had their super draft, which is that one opportunity where they tell all the clubs that are currently in the league, hey, you need to put in a list of players for somebody to come and steal. All it means. So and interestingly, San Diego took 5 players. They were eligible for 5 players out of a pool of 350. They took 5 players, but they immediately traded 2 of them.
Interesting.
So they took 5 players and then immediately traded them to other clubs for cash, which makes me think they want to do a big designated player signing. And they're going to roll the dice and try to get 3 fairly big name designated players, and then fill out the rest with more, journeyman solid people. And this is not a surprise. 3 of the players they have picked are from, drum roll please, the Right to Dream Academy, which is the owner of San Diego FC.
There we go. Okay. So
and also owns an academy in Ghana, a club and academy in Egypt, and also the Danish club Njefrelen. I can never pronounce that name.
So
they were in the Champions League last year.
I need to understand this more and get into it and sort of get my head around this more. But it's interesting you say that. So essentially what you're saying is the owner of San Diego then has essentially got these satellite clubs and feeder belts to the idea is to feed this and then sort of perpetuate it. And if you look at this, now let's go around the world and think of some other franchises or models where they have that. Now, the Red Bulls, the ones jump to mind.
Yeah, they're a significant. They do that. Yep, absolutely.
Yes. There's the Red Bull franchise, in which I believe there's about 6 of them around the world. There's one in Brazil, one in the US.
Right. Well, 4 major ones: Brazil, US, and then Austria and Germany.
And then I think they have in Australia as well, I believe. And
they do have an affiliate somewhere in the A League as well. Yeah.
There is Clear Lake Capital, which is Chelsea's owners. Also, I believe they own Strasbourg. I believe they are the owners of Strasbourg, and I think they're looking to also pick up a few others as well. So again, the idea is you can loan out younger players and get them game time, and then you can promote them sort of within your own ecosystem as well. So it's interesting to suddenly again how the business of sport is sort of coming together and sort of bringing this all together, right?
Yeah, and not surprising. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, I think that if it is allowable, there's a lot of benefits to having multiple pools to pick talent from. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a model that you're going to continue to see. It does represent a little bit of a challenge when you have teams that are in international competitions facing one another. And there have been some concerns around the FIFA World Cup, for example. In Mexico, this is a very common phenomenon that there are multiple Liga MX teams that are owned by the same controlling group.
Interesting.
They're playing in the same league.
Yeah.
What is to stop them from
Competing.
choosing which one of those teams they want to win and manipulating the game to go? So these are good questions. There are no answers. They're good questions.
These are interesting. Yeah, I know that there was a rule, wasn't there, where that like lone players can't play against their parent club when they go against
That's
it.
correct. And that's pretty much the case in almost every league that's out there that they enforce that. Yeah.
But what happens if Strasbourg, for example, in France get promoted and then suddenly get into a European competition against Chelsea, or the Red Bull two teams go against each other as well? What happens in that instance? And now, obviously,
I think you'll notice that the Red Bull Salzburg and Red Bull Leipzig did not play against each other in the Champions League,
which is interesting.
I guarantee you that was by design.
Do you think they
absolutely 100%? There was no way they could have that.
Yeah. And so it does create challenges as it sort of grows and sort of, it brings into sort of question the sort of the credibility and the intentionality of sort of the performance here, right? Which is
right. And just out of curiosity, people who, if you don't know about the Right to Dream Academy, there are players that that were from Right to Dream Academy. The biggest one being Mohamed Kudus from West Ham.
Interesting.
He was a graduate of that academy, as was Mikkel Damsgaard from Brentford.
Oh wow! Okay.
So those are two, and then Simon Adringa, who he's a midfielder for Brighton, doesn't get a lot of playing time, but he's also, so they actually have a record. Right to Dream primarily exists to place African talent in U.S. colleges. That's really what it does.
That's what it's set up for. Yes.
Right. So they get a lot of kids into into educational opportunities through U.S. colleges, but they also do professional development as well. So it's an interesting model. I do think it was created from the right perspective. It was a former Manchester United scout who started in 1999.
Wow.
And then it was basically the controlling interest was purchased by the Anglo-Egyptian billionaire Masood. And so he came in and took over all that, and that's when we've started to see the big expansions.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we can expand on this more in future episodes and sort of future.
Yes, we will.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Well, I think that's we've bounced around the world once again in the wonderful world. Once again, and it's always been a pleasure. And I suppose we'll be back again next week. And again, analysing the performances, how the league looks, how low Man City will continue to go, and
they're good. They're in limbo land. They're bending backwards.
Wonderful. Well, again, as always, Qooligan. See you next week.
All right, Gary.
Thank you.
Take care.